Welcome to Plant Your Seed. I'm your host, Fred Ferris. On each episode, we share stories of how ordinary people have transformed their lives. Each story is compassionate, each story is authentic, and each story is a transformation. Here are the stories of the people who are changing our world by transitioning to a plant-based diet. Today on Plant Your Seed, joining us from Scotland, we have Catherine Besch. Kat is the founder and director of Vietnam Animal Aid and Rescue in Hoi An, Vietnam. She is an outspoken vegan rescuer and pig mother who is obsessed with global food security and building a world without animal agriculture and fishing. Welcome, Kat.
Thank you. Good to be here.
Thanks for being here on Plant Your Seed. Let's start with, how did you end up in Vietnam starting Vietnam Animal Aid and Rescue?
That's a complicated story, but it's a really kind of weird, trajectory for your life. And I mean, I guess it wasn't at that point in my life, but I had just been living in Mongolia, which was horribly cold, and one of the coldest capital cities on the planet. And I really just needed something warm. And Vietnam was on my list for a while because my parents had lived there when my dad was CIA, 1971 to 73. Also, my father's a Vietnam vet. He's a retired Marine officer, as well as a major collector of Vietnamese art, furniture, and just beautiful, beautiful Vietnamese things. So I grew up with the idea of Vietnam as such a close concept to me. I mean, one of my beds as a child was Vietnamese. I mean, I just have always had just Vietnam around me. So it was kind of a natural place for me to go. And as my parents were quite old, I wanted to show them before they died what had happened to the country that they left so many years ago. And so coming there was a really important thing for me to do for the family, and just try to connect to them in some way, at their age. And so when I got there, though, I really planned on being there for like 6 months. This was in 2012 when I came, and I mean, clearly I failed at 6 months. That was a major failure, because I kind of got there and I realized that there was something there I could do. I was at the time studying for my master's in emergency and disaster management online. So I was able to be in places where there were a lot of disasters, and Vietnam has a lot of typhoons. There's a lot of flooding every year. So being in Vietnam was quite important for me in regards to being able to do my master's and having all these things happening around me, which I was actually studying.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was a really good experience. But I also saw a whole lot of things going on with animals that, in my experience with animals, I knew I could affect. I had ridden horses for most of my life in the United States, and as well as, managing stables and always working with rescues, volunteering, trap, neuter, release programs. I've always been involved in it. But when I was in Vietnam, I could see that I could do something. You always see all of these things happening wherever you go around the world, and you feel helpless. But I knew that I wasn't helpless. I knew that I had these skills, or I was dumb enough to think I did. I think that was the mistake that I made. I was really stupidly optimistic. I had no idea what I was getting into. That's the best way to put it. I really was an overconfident little idiot, and and I got my ass handed to me, to be fair. And I'm really glad I did. But yeah, I went vegan there as well. And once I went vegan, that's also it opened my eyes up even more to the issues that were there. And I rescued a baby macaque that was going into the wildlife trade. And that's when I had interaction with vets for the first time there, which was absolutely horrendous. And understanding the wildlife trade, and just a couple of things just brought me into interaction with the horrible things that I knew I could affect. And I kind of went for it. I mean, I have a caffeine problem. I mean, it seemed like a good idea at the time. So that's kind of what happened. But yeah, little did I know.
So this happens in 2012.
2013 is when it actually, I officially opened the shelter. Yeah.
Okay, so 2013,
Mm-hmm.
You show up in Vietnam, you open
Mm-hmm.
this shelter,
Yep.
and you just start rescuing animals?
Yeah, yeah, basically. It sounds way more simple than it actually was. Yeah, so I had brought my dog and my cat as well. I had my Mongolian cat and then my American dog. And so I brought them there, and then kind of through my interaction with both rescue and my own animals, I realized that the veterinary situation was really poor, and I kept trying to find a way to make it better. And the animals that were being found and given to me, and I had a partner originally in the organization, but she just took cats. And so I guess just the way things happen, it was just kind of a waterfall of cases. And through that experience, I learned so much on the ground about what I didn't know, and B, what veterinarians didn't know either, that were there. And so kind of through a period of time, you learn that you're just watching things die for a living. Like the amount of trauma, the amount of suffering that you personally experience on a daily basis in this work, and the lack of resources to alleviate that is really, really difficult. And so eventually I opened my own veterinary clinic. It was the first nonprofit clinic in the history of Vietnam, which admittedly came from like just being manically caffeinated and desperate, really, really desperate. I had seen so many horrible things, and then I saw a C-section without anesthesia, and that was kind of like that was the straw that broke the camel's back, so to speak. And it was very, yeah, I was going to do anything. I would have done absolutely anything to ensure that I had international vets on staff. um and I was done. I was absolutely done. You can only take so much. You can only see so many things. And, especially I think as a vegan, I think my eyes being open to how much suffering was not just dogs and cats, that also really just changed the game for me, you know? But it was, yeah, it was crazy. I laugh at it like a crazy person because it was crazy. So.
What are some of the unique challenges that Vietnam presents versus, say, the US or the West as far as animal rescues?
How much time do you have?
I got plenty of time, as long as it
That's
takes.
a big old question. Yeah, that's a massive question. I mean, everything. That's the start. Um, I look at the way that people do their job, say here in Edinburgh and in rescue, and I have more in common with an ambulance driver in Damascus, Syria, than I do with people up the road from me here. In terms of resources, veterinary resources are the main, but financial resources, adopting homes, safe facilities, legal backing, government corruption is, whatever. It's the UK. It is what it is. It's not perfect, but it definitely beats Vietnam.
Hmm.
Just kind of like the social acceptance of rescue work. Also, I mean, everything, just like you name it. There's nothing. I have nothing in common with people doing rescue in the West for the most part. And the problem is, unfortunately, as a Westerner, as an American, that comes from that mentality, that comes from other rescues, comes from working for millions and horses, and our vet bills could be $20,000 for a month, and somebody would pay it, which
Hmm.
just seems like a joke to me. I don't know where that money comes from. Just in general, I think people also, as Americans, we look at Vietnam as what? We look at it a place where we went to war. We look at
Hmm.
a place where our grandfathers, our uncles, my dad went to war, killed people for a reason that we thought was brilliant at the time, and eventually we figured out that was stupid, and we got our asses handed to us again. So that's what we see it as, and people now think about it as a place where dog meat exists, which yes, it does, but I don't know. Have you been to a Sainsbury's or a Tesco in Edinburgh and seen the corpses there? The challenges we have in certain areas are the exact same. But I think in general we lack the human resources. We don't have the people that understand animal care. We don't have access. I mean, most of our caretaking staff have always been Westerners for the reason that they grew up with the kind of animal care concepts that are actually beneficial to animal welfare and animal rights than the Vietnamese, who may love animals and try very hard. And there are Vietnamese rescues, and there's many Vietnamese animal lovers and animal rights activists, but just the general caretaking aspect and the understanding of veterinary medicine and veterinary emergencies and medication and all these things is just completely absent, totally. And that's extremely frustrating. The lack of homes to rehome animals to is a really big problem, because the Vietnamese like to just let their animals run around, but there's the dog and the cat meat trade, so we do not adopt out to people who are not keeping their animals inside, safely inside of a walled garden, only walking on leashes. I mean, there's a lot of stipulations to what you do with these animals, because I'm not going to take a dog that is going to end up in the dog meat trade, in a week. So we can't adopt to any of, most of the 95 million people that are citizens of Vietnam. I mean, can you imagine if you said that in the United States? It's a horrible, horrible lack of homes, just because of the nature of animal caretaking. It's just, and the financial resources. So if the Edinburgh Cat and Dog Home is fundraising, they're going to be surrounded by people that can walk through their doors. And those people can donate to them. They can see them. They speak the same language. It's part of their community. The Vietnamese are big donors, to animal organizations in Vietnam, believe it or not, but they also have really tiny salaries. By percentage, it's just so much lower, just out of the fact that it's a much poorer country. It's not that they don't care. It's not that they don't love animals. It's not that they don't believe in the cause. It's that they generally just don't have the income. So most of our funding comes from overseas. And again, like I said, most people look at Vietnam like it's a place where they have dog meat, and it's a place where we went to war. And they don't see it as a faceted country that has the same problems that a lot of places have, but lack the resources. They don't see the Vietnamese as human most of the time, for that matter. It's really disgusting. It's really, really sick how I've had people view Vietnam and the things that they've said on our pages. It's just really disgusting. So it makes it very difficult to be able to get support and resources for our projects there. Just incredibly difficult. But we do have the same problems, to be fair. People eat animals all over the place around me here in Edinburgh, or in Berlin, even, vegan capital, really. But still tons and tons of dead animals all over the place. We got to stop acting like animal suffering and animal abuse is something that one ethnic group or religion or nationality is capable of doing, because we're all doing it. Humans are bad to animals.
Yeah.
So that challenge exists everywhere, but the actual practical application of rescue in Vietnam is truly a different breed. Yeah, that's really horrible.
What are some of the differences between Vietnam and the U.S. in terms of animal rights? Like you mentioned dogs.
Sure. Yeah, that's hard. I mean, I would say in terms of animal rights, I mean, in terms of animal rights, I would say the United States is blind to what they consider animal rights, for the most part, in a legal sense. What they mean by animal rights is dog rights and cat rights. They don't give a damn about chickens. We know that for sure. If Vietnam is the same, except for they just include dogs and cats in that. So people in the United States are doing to pigs what people in Vietnam do to dogs, and for some reason we all seem to think that that we're superior. It doesn't make it even tiniest bit of sense. But I would say I don't look at things in terms of legality as much anymore, in terms of government protection, because I don't find that to be useful in most countries. In most countries that are still heavily legislated in animal welfare laws. Sorry, I say that with really so much condensation because I just don't really believe in it so much, because it really just sort of it doesn't really have an effect for the animals, the individual animals. It really just invests money. It injects into the infrastructure of continuing the status quo, which is murdering 2.8 trillion animals every year for something we have no use for. I just don't really feel that in terms of animal rights, we're a whole lot different in Vietnam. Like rights, talking about rights, not welfare.
Mm-hmm.
I think people do have a greater growing awareness of what rights is versus welfare. Particularly, that's something that I work really, really hard on driving home to people, is that there's a massive difference between those two things. And we really want to end the speciesism in that discussion about animal rights, and just being, crying crocodile tears over the dog meats, right? Well,
Mm-hmm.
5 million dogs are killed every year in Vietnam, 33 million pigs, 551 million chickens, 84 million ducks. What are we crying about dogs for?
Right.
They're part of a much, much bigger system, just like the United States. No different in any way than what goes on in the United States, except for we do more of it per capita. We've industrialized and normalized it in a way that has made it so happy for the consumers, and
Mm-hmm.
it's just, I don't know, it's a different system there, but same problems, same problems, same mentality.
What do you think are some of the root social and economic issues in animal and human rights today?
Oh, that's a good one. I like that one. Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, going back to welfare, I would say definitely that's an economic thing. I mean, what people are really interested in doing in terms of, like, in animal rights, we've sort of ignored. Hang on, let me backtrack on that a second.
Uh-huh.
Because it's a really exciting question, because I'm always talking about the social, economic, and political implications of animal rights. And so, like, nobody ever asked me that. So I'm so happy to hear it. I'm so happy to hear somebody actually touching on it. Yeah, I would actually say that, like, animal animal advocacy. I use that generalized term because I like to lump everybody into it. Animal advocacy has a tendency to sort of uphold the status quo economically. We really want to continue keeping farmers profitable, fishermen profitable, and in spite of the fact that what they're doing is so detrimental to global food security, public health. Obviously zoonotic diseases and things like this we need to talk about a little bit more. It's awful for greenhouse gases. What we're doing to the oceans is frankly unforgivable.
Mm-hmm.
It's just disgusting, and we completely ignore that. But that's one of the hindrances, is because we want to keep those jobs. You got 3 billion people that are employed directly or indirectly in coastal communities in the seafood industry, right? So
Mm-hmm.
there's a huge economic interest in keeping that upheld. And the social element of that is, we want to keep farmers' kids going to school. We want to keep them having health care, all of these things. But what we've managed to ignore in this process of what it's going to take to transition this food system from something that is detrimental to, global food security, the environment, and food safety, all these things, public health, and transition it into something, put all of our chips into transitioning away from those destructive things, and by doing so, ensuring that each individual that works in those industries has another job to go to, right? And we're not putting our chips in that basket. We're just saying, oh well, we can't get rid of the farmers, and well, what are they going to do, these pastoralists in these places, and whatever, because they don't have any alternatives, and blah blah blah. People want to pull the livelihoods card out at any cost.
Mm-hmm.
At any cost, they pull that one out. And we're really not talking about what needs to happen, subsidizing the transition. Yeah, and that's going to handle both your social and economic implications of food production, particularly, which is the massive problem for animal rights in general, is the food system. Most animals are dying through production as food animals, and we're just not addressing it. We're just not. The farmer lobbies are too strong. Fishing lobbies are too strong. We've got to be addressing it in a way that we're ensuring that those people continue to have livelihoods, and that we continue to have food being produced, and we continue to try and help the environment and save the oceans. That's got to be driven home with a message that's a lot more clear. We're just faffing about with this garbage, this whole, I don't know. high welfare systems, blah, 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 grass-fed, cage-free, blah, blah, blah.
Mm-hmm.
It's just it's just injecting money and investing money into a system that doesn't work and is killing us and all the animals.
How do we make that transfer?
That's a really good question. I think, one of the things that I really want to be working on in my organization is farm transitions and fishing transitions. I think um, I should have put it in my bio, but I'm really seaweed obsessed, and governments need to be seaweed obsessed too. Seaweed is the answer for all of life's problems. I am telling you, seaweed is going to save the world. We have just got to really get the government behind this, because that's an alternative for fishing in the fishing industry. That's an alternative for keeping coastal communities alive. But that's not something that me as a nonprofit can do, and we've got to stop looking at small actors like nonprofits as the only people doing this. Mercy for Animals has a farm transformation project, rancher advocacy program in Texas, of course, so they're pioneering project in the US. We've got Hofnar Farm Sanctuary in Switzerland. I mean, these things are happening. Refarmed and Geraldine Stark in Spain,
Mm-hmm.
and it's just there's so many people that are trying to do it. The scale's too small.
Right.
We're pissing on a wildfire here. We really got to be able to have the governments behind us. And we've got it. Here's the problem. Animal welfare organizations are too heavily invested in the infrastructure change to welfare systems, as opposed to ending the production of somebody's suffering and death. And if we had the backing of the large animal welfare organizations to finally just grow a pair and say, hey, stop killing animals, here's an alternative, then I think we could have a lot more pressure on the government. We would have a lot more lobbying going on Capitol Hill and in London that's going to make a lot bigger difference than just like little organizations like mine and little companies that want to help scattered throughout the world. It's not big enough. We're never going to be big enough. We've got to have much greater investment in that, and on land and in the sea. It's just terrifying how that's just being just avoided in the discourse, in the public discourse. It's just terrifying to me.
What is your feeling on cell-based cultured meat?
Oh, that's a tough one. You're tricky. Yeah, that's a really good one. I mean, I think, it's a tough question, because I'm really kind of nuts about food tech as well, and I followed those industries really closely, and watching the cultured meat products, and especially now cultured seafood, that's even on the menu now in Singapore, which is just crazy. These things are really, really happening, and they're scaling up, and they're becoming more affordable. This is happening, and and yeah, it's hard. I'm not the market for it,
Mm-hmm.
but I do understand there will be that market. I think.
Well, what do you feel as far as a solution? We were talking about a solution. What about that as a start of a solution to make that transfer happen?
I think. Look, I can't give a hard decision on it, because this is where I have a problem. What it does, having cultured meat sort of continues to drive home the idea that we need meat at all.
Mm-hmm.
And that's simply not true. I mean, there's just no evidence to that. And, I feel like that's kind of where it bothers me the most, that it continues to sell the idea that we need it. And I feel that there's going to be a lot of pushback from saying, well, this came from a lab. I'm not going to eat this. This isn't natural. Yeah, as if your raped cow is natural. Yeah, brilliant.
Right. But I mean, when you look at it, right, organic apples or whatever, people don't have a problem with eating a pesticide apple because
Yeah,
it's cheaper. I think that when
yeah.
it comes cheaper, people won't, unless it has to be labeled.
Oh, that's such a good point. Yeah,
I think it comes
yeah.
down to economics.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree on that as well. I mean, I think, yeah, a lot of people buy meat, well, not only out of habit, but because of price, and they just feel like this is just what's normal. And this is a problem. We've made meat so cheap, haven't we?
Mm-hmm.
We've made it so cheap without ever including the real costs of meat and the production of meat. We don't put any of that on that label. That doesn't go into the price. So it's unnaturally cheap. If we have something that's an alternative that's like legitimately that cheap because that's what it, that's the outcome of the production, then and if it's competitive, if it tastes the same, yeah, it does make sense. But I still can't say I'm 100% decided on it. I mean, I flip-flop back and forth a lot, and I think the one thing I've learned at my age, I'm 42 now, the one thing I've learned is that I've got to stop having really hard opinions about stuff that I don't have 100% information on. And so I kind of allow myself to have, a hard enough opinion to be as aggressive as I am naturally, but with the understanding that I have to always keep researching no matter what it is. So that's one of the subjects that I'm researching a lot. But yeah, I mean, I even applied for a position with a cell-based dairy company. I mean, like I'm trying to get more information and talk to these people, and kind of make a decision on that. But yeah, I think if it can save trillions of animals, I think we kind of have to be behind it, don't we?
Yeah, it's a slippery slope, right?
It
Because I mean,
is.
and like you said, opinions change based on new information, which changes
Yeah.
daily. So,
Yeah.
you could find out something tomorrow that could change your hardened opinion today, and there's
Absolutely.
nothing wrong with that because
Yeah.
that's being flexible.
Yeah, for sure.
What is it about animals that makes you so passionate?
um it's funny. It just makes me giggle because like I don't know. I mean, like they've always been my best friends since I was a little kid. I've always been closer to animals than I have ever been to humans. I don't know. I mean, I've always found comfort in them, and I've always found camaraderie even in them. And, they're my family. They always have been. And, most of my life I excluded so many species from that family and my circle of compassion. And I'm so glad I'm over that. But that has always been in me. I was always that kid. I was that kid that would like play cards with their dog, and I used to dress them up, and we'd have like, oh, just nuts. It was just nuts, the things I've done with my animals. I really, like, if I were my parents, I would never have let me do the things I did with my animals, just because it, like, I don't know, it just probably wasn't all that nice for them to be like constantly bothered by this little kid, and have little outfits on and stuff, just because I clearly needed to learn how to connect with humans. But I just feel so much now as a vegan, especially, that they kind of all are my family. I mean, I look out this window, we got foxes, of course, in the UK, and I sit here and I stare at them like some crazy old lady in the neighborhood looking for kids to touch her lawn, except for I'm looking for foxes so I can swoon over them, because they're my family. They're my little buddies, I watch the little bunnies, and they're my friends too. And I just feel so connected to them, and so sorry. I think mostly I feel really sorry that it took me so long to see them. I've always loved them, but I think I always thought they were there for me to do something with, to be entertained by, to snuggle, to kiss all over, like to ride. Of course, being a rider for so long, I always believed that they were just there for me to do stuff with, and that was never contradicted by anything in my world, particularly not with horses. I think horses were probably the most destructive aspect of my life in building compassion and opening up that circle of compassion to other species. You know, I think escaping that echo chamber has helped me reconnect with who I was as a child. Once I left the United States, I was 26. I left horses behind. Really, I kept my horse, and I had her for 18 years. I but I left the horse world, which I was so deeply embedded into. I was a fox hunter. I mean, like, I was not a good person. There was nothing good about me. We would go to the races, and then we would have pork barbecues. We would have a pig on the spit, but we all loved animals. We love animals. We love animals. We love animals. Say it one more time, and maybe it'll be true. We love animals. We love our horses. Do you? Do you really? Do you love putting a piece of metal in their face and dragging their heads around? Do you love kicking them? And do you love putting an uncomfortable saddle on their back? Do you love putting them into situations that are dangerous? Do you love getting rid of them when they don't serve you anymore? Do you love making the choice to kill them when they are no longer profitable for you? I mean, it's not love. That love is rubbish. I mean, nobody needs that love. But we were convinced of it, and we believed it for all the animals in our lives. Everybody's got their little Jack Russell Terriers in the horse world, right? All these little purebreds, and it was cuckoo. It was cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs, and I'm so glad that I stepped outside, and then I could finally see them. It still took me a while, but um, I don't know. I see the humanity in each of them. Not that that's a compliment. I mean, humanity isn't something that I think anybody wants to be called. We're pretty awful. But but yeah, I mean, especially I look at my pig's eyes, and if you've been up close with a pig, they're more human than humans are, for sure. There's no doubt. There's no doubt, looking into their eyes, who they are. On that there's somebody very, very serious and brilliant inside of there, and I'm so lucky to share my life with them. And I'm so glad that I finally saw, you know?
Now, India, your beloved rescue chicken, passed away recently.
Yeah.
How do you deal with the losses?
That's a hard one, I think, because my job is loss after loss after loss and failure after failure to end somebody's suffering and to prevent it even. And that life is punctuated by success, for a few, but predominantly my job is to manage loss. Loving something with all of your heart so deeply, like your child, and then losing them because they're not going to live as long as me. I
Hmm.
mean, unless you have an elephant or a tortoise or something, like, you're probably going to outlive everybody you love. And so many of them you come in contact with. And India was such a special girl. I made fun of her all the time because she was like the Sophia Loren of chickens. I always say she was very voluptuous, so she was kind of like a sex goddess. And she was such a flirt with the rooster neighbors, who obviously came and went because they were eaten. So she had all these boyfriends that were being killed, and she didn't know that, right? So it was a little
Mm.
bit messed up. But she was just kind of like their sexy entertainment for so long, just the way that our properties are kind of next to each other, but separated, where he could see them, he could see her. So I don't know. I mean, I feel like she was so special and so loved, and I feel like sometimes that's as good as it gets. We love them as long and as hard as we can, with everything we have, and we protect them with all of our might and stand up for them and everybody like them. And then they have someplace else to be, I guess. That's what I have to believe. I've just had so many losses, and so many of them are senseless. We also lost a dog recently to MRSA, which came from two blind chickens that we rescued that ended up having MRSA. And in spite of being in extremely good quarantine, I thought, unfortunately, my staff don't have experience in quarantine protocols, and possibly that's how it was spread. But that, one of my dogs got it. Amy got it, and I'm never going to see her again.
Mm.
And she was just as special as those chickens. Those chickens are just as special as her, just as special as India, just as special as Juju Bear, my son. And oh, there's a fox now. That's funny. I'm just looking at a fox out the window. I'm obsessed with them, really. Like Americans, we don't see these things that much. So, but yeah, I mean, like, I have to acknowledge that I do my best. And more than anything, that loss to me is a reminder of why I do what I do, and that we have to speak up for them to prevent them ever being on this planet in the first place. I mean, the domestication of animals is one of the greatest crimes of humanity. India should never have been born. We don't need anything from her. We don't need her flesh, and we don't need her eggs. If I do my job well, she would never have been born. And Louise, I call her my manager. She's my best friend, my manager. She's also a chicken. She's 9 now, and I love her so much, but I know that my job is to make sure that there aren't any more of her, to prevent them from being on this planet by being an advocate and being outright and honest about what it means to love animals, and not even just love animals, obviously, like I said, care about food security, care about the environment, care about public health, care about zoonotic diseases. It means not ever, ever having her on this planet, you know? And that's also a loss for me too. What would my life be without my Louise or my India? Um, but it's not about me, is it? It's not about me. That's the whole point of this. None of this is about us. It's about everybody. It's about all of these animals that we are sworn to protect.
Mm.
And to do so, it takes a lot. It takes a lot of being not liked and knowing that no matter what, you're right, because you've watched so much suffering and death. I mean, my full-time job is to watch preventable suffering and death. That is what I do 7 days a week for 9 years. It's not something you just give up because it's hard or because it hurts.
How do you feel when that happens?
I feel I feel happy for her, like, when I think I was happy for her at that time because I know she had suffered a lot in that body. I know that we lacked the veterinarians to care for her. Frankly, most of the planet does. I know that she will always be with me fighting for veterinarians that see her as a patient, not as a food item, not as a food animal, not as profit, not as a sandwich. And that is one of the biggest goals I have with India. I look at each of these animals as advocates and representatives and pieces of this mission. I mean, India is this mission, not just to prevent her body from ever being on the planet, but to get for those that are here, we need to have veterinarians and other people that call themselves animal lovers also fighting for her.
Mm-hmm.
She was one of the oldest chickens in the entire country of Vietnam. I mean, think
Mm.
about that. It's not a small country. I know everybody looks at it like it's tiny. It's got 95 million people in that country. We're the only farm sanctuary in the entire place. We're the only animal rescue that talks about other species other than cats and dogs. We're the only rescue that does not go out for a steak dinner. Yeah. So, and is open about it and is flat out honest about it. And that blows my mind. That has to change for India. The veterinary industry has to change for India. So each one of them is just, that's what I feel. I feel the fire being stoked. Those embers, like, they're a bonfire after about an hour, after I cry myself to sleep a bit.
Mm.
And then I get up and I'm like, like, I got my fists in front of me. I'm like, let's go, let's do this. Let's do this. I'm going to change the world. I'm going to eliminate the food animal label from drug restrictions. I mean, the USDA, FDA have these food animal labels that prevent it's not even legal to give your chicken an implant in the United States to prevent them from having eggs, which is a life-saving thing.
Mm.
To do that is off label. That's just disgusting. Do you know the list of drugs that chickens are legally not even allowed to have, because everybody thinks, including veterinarians, people that went to veterinary school because they loved animals, because they think that they're not a living thing, that they're not a patient. That has to change. India makes me change that. India makes me fight for that. Louise makes me fight for that. Juju Bear, Mistress Lola, they all make me fight for that. They are my armor in this battle that is going to go on for the rest of my life.
Now, you mentioned veterinary care. What is the infrastructure like in Vietnam and other developing countries?
Poop. I mean, I do not know a nice way to say that. That was my nice way. That was my nice way. When I really just want to, like, pull my hair out and scream, that's what actually internally is happening when I say poop. Yeah, no, it's awful. It's awful. I think we have the idea that a vet is a vet is a vet everywhere around the world. And I was dumb enough to believe that when I moved to Vietnam, even though I had known differently, and just kind of didn't absorb it. And so I really think, yeah, I mean, veterinarians in Vietnam, they go to veterinary school, and more often than not, they can go through a 5-year degree program and never touch an animal, alive or dead. They never learn sedation. If they do, it's a chapter that they ignore. They don't learn about pain management. They're really not learning about proper suturing. They don't do necropsy, so they don't see any dead animals. And I know that's something that we don't even want to do in Western veterinary universities anymore. We really want to use modeling and things like that. But in developing countries, that's they're never going to have that technology, not for decades, really, to be able to do non-animal like dissections and things like that. But they just don't have any understanding of it. When I had my veterinary clinic, I had a Vietnamese vet that was straight out of university, and it was, yeah, it was like training a kindergartner. She really knew absolutely nothing. She'd never seen a cat neutered. She didn't know how it was done. She didn't know how to wash her hands. Right. So like for anything, she really just didn't know how we wash our hands for surgeries. We had to turn her into a surgeon in 2 years. And unfortunately we didn't do a particularly good job, because now she runs a clinic and is back to doing things that are absolutely asinine. And last time we had animals there, they all picked up parvo. They were these feral puppies that we brought in, and all three of them ended up getting parvo in her clinic. Yeah. So, like, basic sanitation, just sort of the understanding of infectious disease management, vaccine protocols, these are all completely absent in veterinary training in Southeast Asia specifically, but it's not, that extends to even places like in the Balkans and, a lot of developing countries. I mean, the Balkans is higher development, but low for Europe, obviously. But yeah, I mean, it's pretty bad. It's pretty bad. Yeah. I mean, like, a lot of animals, I would say, suffer in Vietnam more from going to the vet than they would just dying at home. Nonsensical diagnostics and things like this. And I think the one thing that really drives this, and this is something that's very different, not 100% different, but pretty different from the West, is that when you get out of vet school as a Vietnamese veterinarian, you're kind of like taught that you already know everything. Like, you're not supposed to be questioned. So as a doctor, you have some sort of authority over others, and that hierarchy means so much in Vietnam. So asking them any questions means you're questioning their knowledge, which is a no-no. And that would mean they would lose face. So they could never say, I don't know. They can never straight out tell you, I don't know the answer to that. So they have to bullshit. They've got to make something up. So that really hinders the idea of training. So you really have to get them out of university and train them from what would be a first year veterinary student, or frankly, a sophomore in a microbiology course in the United States, to get them to understand kind of the basics of, pharmacology and, just simple applications for how things work, aseptic procedure, things like that. It's just so that you don't have an animal that is just going in for having his nuts chopped off and ends up losing his kidneys, which is what happened. That's a real story that happened at a clinic in Laos that I know. A veterinarian was trying to take his nuts off, and instead had a midline incision and took both of his kidneys out. So, like, some really basic issues. That sounds like an exaggeration. It's insane that that's a real story. The things I've seen in veterinary clinics in Vietnam and other developing countries in the global South is profoundly bad. Profoundly bad. The idea that we can have rescue in a high capacity, as everybody wants us to in Asia and in other places with high stray populations, and do nothing to increase the veterinary capacity of the country, that's just absurd. That's so many levels of batshit crazy and just completely unrealistic. We really need to be focusing on veterinary solutions and building up that capacity, not only in the education system, but in post graduation, and in terms of internships and international exchanges specifically, so that these veterinarians can get to places where they actually have kind of basic sanitation protocols in their clinics and have learned how to handle animals, and sedate their animals for surgery. These are things that are going to make a really big difference in the way that animals are treated in the countries that they're from. But it's, unfortunately, as a nonprofit, one of the hardest things to fund. People, like, you say vet on any post, on any email, and like, you lose people every time.
You launched mobile veterinarian clinics in central
Yeah.
Vietnam, is that correct?
Yeah. That's crazy stuff. Yeah, it's been fun. It's been fun. It's been hard. But yeah, we had the vet clinic at the time. So we had 3 years of that, where we would do some mobile sterilization clinics where we would pack everything up and go on the road. But we've never had a van to do it with where we could do it more locally. And so it was kind of a side project because running the veterinary clinic was kind of like, it was a trauma clinic. If you live in a place where there is no preventative medicine and there's so many accidents and there's just really no understanding of medical care, everything you get is like on the verge of death. Every patient that comes in is basically a trauma case or like a late stage distemper or something that's about to die. So having that clinic was super important, but it was not able to do the preventative work that we wanted on the scale that we needed it to run. Yeah, because we spent all of our money and all of our time doing this one community clinic. And I think that was kind of the mistake that I made the first time, which I will not repeat the second time. We will be doing full time sterilization, vaccination, deworming programs, because we need to eliminate the population of domesticated animals in Vietnam. And I'm trying to get one started in Cambodia as well, in order to actually eliminate the animals that are going into rescue. I mean, like, where are we going to put all these animals? You want to buy me an island? Awesome. Do you want to, bring me a vet, like kidnap a bunch of vets from the University of Edinburgh up the street? Fine, let's do that. But I'm pretty sure it's not legal or cost effective. But ultimately, we need to be able to like manage the population. We've got to get it down if we're going to get a handle on this. But it's just, yeah, it's really hard to get that going because it's just, and the people that are interested in animal rescue are not interested in the background of it. They're not interested in solving anything. They want to see a mangy puppy in a picture that suddenly grows hair and is placed with a middle class family in California driving an SUV, taking it to the parks. That's what they think rescue is. It's not. What rescue is to me is a uterus on a surgical table, ripped out of a dog that's never going to have babies again. That's rescue. But people don't really like that. I like gross things, so it's just kind of it's not really good media. You know what I mean? Like that's not, we don't really put that up because it would really turn people off. But I love it. Show me a uterus on a surgical table any day. Love it. But yeah, it's not sellable. It's not sellable.
What is one thing that's exciting you right now in your life?
Food. I hate saying that, but it's true. I love food. I live for it. Yeah, I mean, I feel like I'm I'm excited in kind of like a traumatized way for the organization all the time. I think I think this mission to do the work that we do, to get the mobile veterinary clinic running again, to increase veterinary capacity not only in Vietnam but like push for it globally, and all the projects that I'm trying to do, I feel like that always excites me at the same time that it just kind of makes me want to put my head through a wall, all day long. I think by the time the caffeine buzz wears off, like I really it just drops you. But I am excited about it. I'm just excited about it in a really like desperate, angry way. So it's like it's just kind of a different kind of excitement. But yeah, I mean, I'm excited to go back to Vietnam and see my babies if that ever happens. But I've been locked out of the country since March 2020, and I'm exhausted of being internationally homeless, frankly. So once I get home, that will be really exciting, and to just be able to get back on the ground and do what I'm supposed to do. Um, it's just hard. I mean, like, yeah, physically things have changed a lot for me over the years, and so I can't do the exciting things that I used to. Like the work has been extremely physically and emotionally traumatic. And I had 2 ankle surgeries recently. I've had a herniated disc in my back. I've had heart problems, ulcers, I mean, like the stress is actually killing me. I think people don't really recognize what this job does to people. And it's not just me. This is everybody that does my job. Um, so for us to get excited,
Hmm.
I don't know. It's really hard. It's a different thing. It's different than it was in the beginning. We're destroyed from it over time. So mostly I get excited about eating. Yeah. It is my one true joy.
What would you tell your younger self about starting a rescue?
Don't. Don't. I would say don't. I would say get an MBA. Yeah, make a ton of money with a vegan empire of some kind. and then you spend the money on doing whatever the hell you want. Because if you're trying to sell veganism while trying to rescue animals and build veterinary capacity in a country nobody cares about, you're screwing yourself. Yeah, that's what I would tell myself. I would smack myself in the face. I would be violent. I would pin myself down and spit in my mouth. I would be so angry at myself for even the consideration that I would start a rescue. It's so immature. I would also say you better have a vet on board day one. Day one, have like a team of vets, and you need to be able to pay them properly, really well, and give them time off and not constantly traumatize them. Is rescue a good idea? With the right resources, I think it's possible. But if you don't understand what resources you need, then you can't do it. You need to have, I would say, anybody. It was like listening to Wendy at Odd Man End. She's a nurse. She's qualified to do something that involves generally a lot of medical stuff. When you work in rescue, you have to have a much better understanding of medical stuff. And I did, because I had worked for vets and, with horses and things like that. But it was not enough by any means to do what I do. I mean, now it is, but that's, the school of hard knocks for, 9 years of watching suffering and death. You learn things. But running a vet clinic, living in my veterinary clinic, and being a couple meters away from critical patients for years, you learn things. But myself 9 years ago, when I was dumb enough to start this on my nice big manic caffeine buzz, no, I would hit her.
How do you keep going?
Caffeine, honestly. Like, I know it sounds like I might be a cocaine addict, but it's really just coffee. I could not do this job if I didn't wake up and drink copious amounts of coffee. And also, I have on my phone, which I have to spend most of my day on, my Piggles, my Juju Bear, my son, Julian. He's my wallpaper. India is my background. I mean, like they're everywhere. I have always talking to Vietnam. I may be physically in the UK, but or wherever I am in the world, throughout the years, wherever I am, I'm in Vietnam. I always know why I do this. Those are my babies, and I love them, and I will fight for them until the day I die. You know, I know that's how I keep going. I mean, it's very, very difficult sometimes, but I used to run. I used to, when I went vegan, I became a marathon runner, and then a Ironman triathlete. I did a half Ironman, because that was my drug. That's how I keep doing it. And you have to stay extremely fit, and you have to burn off your hatred for humanity. You just have to burn it off. You've got to do like a 90K bike ride before you even feed animals. You got to get in the sea, and you got to swim out 2K before you even have to, look at your emails and find out what horrible things you're about to go through that day. But it does get to you. I don't want people to believe that I am okay, because that's not true. I don't think any of us are.
Mm.
I think I've suffered deeply from compassion fatigue and burnout. I'm serious PTSD. Serious PTSD. I have put myself in a mental hospital for suicidal depression when I opened the veterinary clinic. That's the crazy thing. Everything was going well, but like I just watched too much death, and I was catatonically depressed. This job gets to you. So the idea that how do I keep going? Well, I don't know. I don't sometimes. It is hard, but I know why. I know why I do what I do. I know very much why. And I've got the scar on my face from the pig that stabbed me in the face when I was kissing him. And that will remind me all the time that I will kiss him. I will kiss him again and again and again and again. And I will do anything to protect him. That's how I do what I do. Because he's got the cutest little ears, and you just want to kiss his little soft ears and his little squishy tushy. And that's why I keep doing what I do. But I don't like it.
Let's switch gears and
Sure.
get back to your plant-based story. How and when did you transition to a plant-based diet?
So yeah, it was about 2012 I kind of started the process, I would say. I mean, I had toyed with the idea, and a friend of mine basically had said, she had confronted me. She said she wasn't vegan, but she said, well, I know you love animals, and like everything you do in your life is about them, and your horse and your dogs and cats, whatever. But who's on your plate?
Mm.
And I just thought, that one sentence kind of hit me. And again, it wasn't from a vegan, but she gave me Michael Pollan's Omnivore's Dilemma, which again, not from a vegan, but all of the evidence from both of those people kind of over time, like after I read and I read and I read, I mean, basically the reason I went vegan is because I was trying to prove to people that you could both love and kill animals, which is really stupid. But I didn't want to change my habits. I hated vegans. I didn't want to be a vegan. I hated them. I really hated them. I thought they were dirty hippies. I mean, my biggest fear when I went vegan was that I would have long leg hair. Like I made sure to be like shaved bald for years because I was like, I'm not a dirty hippie, and I would keep wearing makeup and, jewelry. And I was just like, I'm not a dirty hippie, because I had this like stupid American suburban idea of what, what a vegan was. And it was ridiculous. And, I just kind of, I had to know why one goes vegan. And I learned about monoculture. I learned about all these things behind it. I learned about the destruction of the oceans from animal agriculture and from fishing. I learned about climate change, I just all these little things on top of the animals themselves. And there was just no way. There was just no way. So I decided I was going to be vegan for a month. And then at the end of the month, I just forgot to stop. And it just kind of, and over time from that moment being vegan, I mean, of course I messed up a few times. Everybody does.
Yeah.
But knowing why changes everything. And then waking up to why changes everything too. And I think waking up to those animals in your house and in your life and your bed. And, my pig slept in my bed, for the first year and a half of his life. And I mean, which I regret. He's such a farter. He's such a stinky bum. It's not as easy to sleep with a pig as you think, but I love him. So yeah, I mean, I just feel like when you wake up to that and you see it in your face all the time, and there's no way to go back to not being vegan. There's no way to just put somebody's dead body in your mouth, or their breast milk, or their, an egg that came shooting out of their butt. I mean, Louise, basically, I was eating lunch with Louise in my kitchen. She sits on the table and we like hang out, chit chat or whatever. And I was eating the salad. And so like I give her the things that she likes from the salad and she eats it. And like we're just hanging out. And then I looked at her and there was this weird moment where I thought, you know what? I've been eating things that come out of your butt. I don't really I don't really do that with my other friends that I eat lunch with. Like, why would I eat anything that came out of your butt? And I understand where an egg comes from. It's a cloaca, but that's not the point. It's technically just like this thing that came out of my friend. I wouldn't eat anything else that came out of any of my friends. It's weird. And just learning about eggs from that point, that really, yeah, it's taught me there's no going back. There's no other way. It's this way or the highway, man. I love it. And God, I eat well.
So, what are some of the positive changes that you noticed after you went vegan? You mentioned something about a triathlete.
Right. So marathoning and stuff, I mean, like becoming I would say like everybody else does that was an athlete, like recovery gets easier. And just like I was able to build up to running so much more so quickly. I had only ever run like a 10K before I started. Like I did a half marathon, I think 6 months after I went vegan. And then the next year I started doing marathons, and it just kind of made me a better athlete. And once I had done those, and I wanted to do the Ironman that's in Da Nang, which is just 30 minutes from me. So I was able to train in the sea, right up the street from me. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And so it just kind of worked out that way. But basically the reason I did that was to kind of prove everybody wrong, because everybody thought that I was going to die if I went vegan. And so I was like, well, I'm going to die at the end of a marathon finish line. So I'll see your fat ass there, so it was kind of like everything I do is a bit in your face. You are kind of who you are in every aspect. I was a hateful, non-vegan, and I'm kind of a pushy vegan. But it kind of gets me through all of this. But I would say the positive changes definitely were my mentality, aside from the physical aspects of it. I had suffered from an eating disorder most of my adult life. And when I went vegan, that just disappeared because I was putting things in my body that I needed to fuel not only my running, but my work as an animal rescue. I went vegan and a month later opened the animal rescue, so all of that happened at the same time. And so my energy needs were just off the charts. I mean, my caloric intake needed to just be like like, like when people are like, oh, should I have that second piece of chocolate cake? Seriously? I'm going to have the cake, the whole cake. And you don't feel bad about that because I didn't kill anybody. It tastes good. What's the problem? And so my experience with food changed a lot. My emotional understanding of food was very different. And I don't know. I mean, I feel like it was such a big help to know that in all the suffering that I saw every day, everything that was so horrible to watch, I wasn't part of that. I wasn't. I didn't have anything to do with it. I was only alleviating it, or I was not participating in it. I just had nothing to do with it as a vegan. And that makes a really big difference to me. It was the one thing that I could say 3 times a day I didn't hurt anybody. I didn't get to save anybody necessarily, or I tried to save this one, but it was too late. I tried to save that one, but it was too late. I don't have the money. I don't have the staff. I don't have the vets. I don't have the resources, but I didn't kill anybody. And everybody else I know working in rescue did. That's the thing that I think was a big problem. Yeah. That was a negative aspect of it. Just seeing that so many people that also did my job did not think going vegan was a moral imperative. And it was just sort of shocking.
In Vietnam.
In Vietnam and in all countries, like I say I'm internationally homeless. I really am. Like I just know people everywhere. I don't live anywhere, but I just know rescues and rescuers around the world. And to find somebody else that is vegan and rescue dogs and cats, it's rare. It's real rare. And that was really upsetting to me. This thing that had brought me so much joy in my life, had brought me so much energy, so much health, so much, internal peace, and so much, peace with my relationship with food, was being called extreme. And that was nuts. Even by people who, would, jump in front of a train to save a dog, but then we'll go out and put a chicken on their Caesar salad. It just didn't make any sense.
Right. What did you struggle with, if anything, when you first became plant-based?
The dumb things people said. I mean, yeah, that's the hard thing. It's really the stupid comments. It's the stupid comments. I put up with it for a while because I didn't want to be that vegan. I didn't want to be the vegans I hated before I was vegan. But now I know I hated them because they were right, and it's just annoying to have somebody else be right and you're wrong. But yeah, I would say that. I mean, the other thing that was kind of like I didn't always cook much. And so it was difficult for me to know what was in things. And especially being in foreign countries where the, ingredient labels are not in English. And my Vietnamese, when I went vegan, wasn't particularly good. So like, here's a dumb one. So I didn't know there was cheese in pesto, right? And I didn't know there was butter in croissants. So these are things, luckily, we don't eat much of in Vietnam ever. I eat mostly Vietnamese food when I'm there, which does not involve butter or cheese. But when I would have random things at like Western restaurants, I was like, oh, well, I'll just have the pesto pasta. Really? Really? No, did you read the jar, honey? They do put cheese in that, but I had no idea because I don't really cook. I didn't at the time. And so that was one of the biggest struggles, just like figuring out what's in stuff so that I could stop eating animal products. So yeah, I think I definitely, as a result of my location when this happened, I think I probably screwed up a lot more than somebody like in their own home country, in their own language. That was kind of stupid and embarrassing. Yeah.
When you mentioned about the comments that people said to you, do you think it's because you challenge their morals and they have to
Absolutely,
rethink?
yeah.
They have to rethink their actual normal. I mean, everybody thinks they're a good person. And then when you challenge their morals, they actually have to think about it.
Yeah, that's hard. That's funny because, like, I always say that it's like you're only bothered because you think you're a good person, but you just murdered somebody by what you just put on your plate. I mean, it's okay to not be a good person. And I think the problem with becoming vegan and sort of opening your eyes to that and finally being awake to the horrors that you've been participating in is that is challenged. That morality that you think is just part of you is. It just really wasn't. I mean, you were really blind and ignorant and you just chose not to see. You put your head in the sand while trillions of animals in the land and in the sea are being killed. And, and it doesn't feel good. I think there are many things about going vegan that do feel good physically, emotionally. There's a lot of good things, but being aware of your participation in the horrors of animal agriculture and fishing, it hurts. It hurts. And I think there's a process of grieving your good self in a way, like, the stages of grief I feel everybody kind of goes through when you become vegan, and this feeling of anger, disappointment, and sort of depression, and, giving up. Why do I bother? Why do like all of these emotions that come to you are really, really uncomfortable. And then you also realize that everybody around to you, including your parents, have lied to you. The media lies to you. Animal welfare organizations have lied to you. They have said that you could both love and kill animals, and you bought that hook, line, and sinker. There's a lot of things that are challenged. And so when you do bring up veganism, when people do say shitty things to you, I mean, really, they're kind of just, I don't know. They're just not to the point of figuring it out and then going over that step of being like, "Oh yeah, you're right. I am an idiot. I am horrible." Um, and I don't want to say that everybody non-vegan is, horrible and disgusting or whatever. It's just like, just open your eyes, man. Just open your eyes. It's gonna hurt, but just please, please, please open your eyes. We can't wait anymore. We cannot wait any longer. They need us to open our eyes. And I think that really, really upsets people, and they say the things that I used to. I mean, I really was a horrible non-vegan. I think people have a hard time understanding that, but like, I wasn't nice to vegans. I was really, I don't know. I wasn't like mean. I was just like saying the stupid jokes like everybody else did.
Yeah.
you know and so I get it. Like, I feel like I'm being punished for the rest of my life because I was so horrible. Like, this is obviously my just desserts. But yeah, I've been on that side. I mean, I was a fox hunter. Give me a break. I used to work for the National Turkey Federation, where my job was to make people eat more turkey in the United States. That was my job. That was my Capitol Hill job straight out of university. I mean, everybody has the potential to change. And so when I talk to people about veganism, when we're eating a meal or whatever, and they're really sort of, gristled about it, they get their heckles up. I'm just like, I don't know. Everybody's got hope. If I had hope, if all the assholes on the planet like me had hope, yeah, there's hope for everyone. Everybody can see if I can.
Now, you mentioned you're a bit of a foodie. What is one habit, hack, or tip that can help you stay on track with your plant-based diet?
Um, yeah. So the one thing that I use, because I travel internationally a lot, and is that I have Happy Cow. That's kind of how I get around. I mean, as far as like eating out, that's kind of the easiest way. Or finding vegan grocery stores, which are popping up all over. Because I've been vegan for almost 9 years now, and I would say about probably about 50 to 60 of the 70 to 80 countries I've been to in the world have been as a vegan. So the idea that you're going to starve is just really stupid. It's just dumb. When you know why, there's nothing to hack. When you know why you're vegan, it's not a diet. There's nothing diet about what I do. It's how I exist on the planet. This is every cell in my body. So like, I'll give you a good example. So I was on this motorbike trip to up in these hill tribes in Cambodia once, and it's not long after I went vegan. And I remember we were up in we got invited to stay in the chief of this hill tribes place with his family or whatever, and they wanted to feed us, right? Of course, it was like rice and fish. And I think the one thing that I felt really was a struggle for me at that time that I had to get over was the social acceptance of choosing not to eat something that was offered to you. Because I'm a people pleaser. It doesn't sound like it. I sound too aggressive to be a people pleaser, but I really am. Like, especially when food is concerned. Like, if somebody gives you something, I've been taught that you just eat it, and you're grateful for it, and you smile and you tell them how wonderful it was. Maybe that's like, my mom is Southern, and I think she kind of drilled that into me. But oh, these are lovely lima beans full of ham. Ugh, gross. Yeah. But I think, like, yeah, my biggest hack would be to make sure, in each country that you're in, what are things that are popular and what are those things that you like. I mean, with the internet now, I'm sorry, but there's kind of just no excuse. There just really isn't. I want to be nice, but I've been vegan in Chisinau, Moldova, and had like a beautiful vegan sushi platter and like this other really nice salad. And then I had this like vegan, it's Chisinau, Moldova. It's the poorest country in Europe. It's not exactly a fancy place. I ate so well in Chisinau, Moldova. I ate great in Mandalay and in Myanmar. I eat well everywhere. In the Moscow airport, which is mostly sausages, to be fair, it's like a lot of garbage, but I find it anywhere. You have to love potatoes.
Hmm.
Don't be afraid of surviving on potatoes for like a couple of days in an absolute necessity. But I can tell you from all my travels that it's almost never a necessity. Almost never. It is such a rare thing that I've had to just eat French fries in any city in any country. Rural or wherever. It doesn't matter. You can find something. You'll be fine. You know, it's about the why. Because being vegan, eating plant-based is not about you, for all the amazing food we have, I mean, come on. So what if you have like mashed potatoes for one damn dinner, right? Your next meal, you're probably going to be able to find something really good. Um, I think it's a little more complicated for people that are picky, like super weird picky, that don't really know what they like yet. That is challenging. I will admit, I have seen some new vegans that had a lot of allergies as well. Um, that just a process. You gotta do your research. You gotta try a bunch of little things.
Hmm.
Um, that's kind of, that's my big help. I think also, if you're a big meat and potatoes person, just replace your meat with a meat alternative. It's not what I encourage people to do. I think people should be whole foods, plant-based in an ideal world. But I mean, come on. If it makes you stop killing animals, I'm good with it. Yeah, it's tough. It's tough to give the right hacks for an individual. If somebody, I'm really good at tailoring my hacks though to people. If people tell me what they're struggling with, I guarantee you I've got an answer for it. I do this full time. I've got an answer for all of this in any country, in any language.
Now, finally, can you give me one word to describe how you felt before you became vegan and one word to describe how you feel now that you are vegan?
I would say before I was blind. I was blind. I was ignorant. I was my head in the sand. After being vegan, I think relentless. Relentless is what I feel as a vegan. I feel relentlessly addicted to this mission of helping to end the animal agriculture industry and the fishing industry and to dismantle a broken food system. And that's what veganism did to me. I mean, you know, it made me a relentless athlete. It made me a relentless rescuer. Um, but it's made me relentless for the animals. I'm not going to stop. And luckily, I'm fueled by right now. I got a Biscoff cheesecake in me and like a big satay bowl, and I got a lot of good stuff to fuel it. But ultimately, after being vegan, I would say that I am absolutely relentless.
Such a pleasure speaking with you. Thank you so much for taking the
Thank
time.
you.
What is
I
the
appreciate
best
it.
way for people to find you on the web, Instagram, social media in general?
Right. I mean, I would look for the organization for sure. I would look for at VN or Vietnam Animal Aid. Sorry, we have a couple of handles. But if you go to vnanimalaid.org, that's the easiest way to find all of those handles on our Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. Twitter is me being more personal, I think. I also write extensively about animal rights and kind of the hypocrisy within the animal rescue industry and how we can better work towards a vegan world. On my Medium, I have a cat.besh at Medium or medium.com, I guess. You know what? I should know these things, shouldn't I? I really should. It's kind of my job. But anyway, if you look for cat, CAT, Besch, BESCH, on my Medium page, there's a lot of those. Also, you can find us on LinkedIn, but all of those things are all linked up to our vnanimalaid.org, our website. And so, yeah, that's me.
All right, Catherine, thank you so much for being on Plant Your Seed.
Thank you.
Hope you are inspired by this story, and remember, it's never too late to plant your seed. Links to everything we talked about on the podcast can be found on Instagram at plant.yourseed in the show notes tab in the bio. If you enjoyed the show, remember to leave us a review, and until next time, thank you for listening.